positive and this is a negative. My positive comes from the product of two numbers. The product of two numbers is positive, but the sum of the numbers is negative. If the product is positive, that must mean either they're both negative or they're both positive. Because this is a negative, that tells me right away that both of those are negative. And now I have to play around with the numbers again. Let's start off with 2x times 2x. And then from here, from the 15, we'll put the 3 here and the 5 here. The process is combining the outer terms, multiplying them, 2x times negative 5, negative 10x, multiplying the inner terms, negative 3 times 2x is negative 6x. Combining those should get that middle term if it's factored correctly, which it's not, because those things combine to get 16x. So that's not right. So we're going to play around with it, move some things around. And well, this is 2x and 2x, so it doesn't do any good to flip the 5 and the 3 because I'm going to end up with the same thing. So let's play around with the first numbers. Instead of having 2x and 2x, we're just going to have 4. 4x times x also can get 4x squared. So we're going to take our outer terms and multiply them. 4x times negative 5 is negative 20x. And then negative 3 times x is negative 3x. Combining those, I get negative 23x, which is what I wanted. So I've just factored this trinomial. And that's what it looks like. 4x minus 3 times x minus 5. Hopefully it's getting a little bit simpler for you. Let's do a couple of more examples in an attempt to get you to better understand it. Let's look at 6x squared plus 8x minus 8. Let's pay attention to these signs real fast. Here's a negative and here's a positive. If I have a negative product, that tells me that one of them is positive and one of them is negative. So that makes it a little bit harder, but not too much. We have to think of the numbers that multiply to get 6. Let's start with 2 times 3. There's also 6 times 1, but we're going to start with 2x times 3x. And what numbers multiply to get 8? We have 4 times 2 or 8 times 1. So let's play around with 4 times 2. I'm going to put a 4 here and a 2 here. I'm not going to put any signs yet because I haven't figured out which sign goes where. I multiply the outer terms to get 4x. Multiply the inner terms to get 12x. Now, instead of adding these two things, they're going to be different signs this time. So I'll be subtracting them to get 8x. I can't believe we did it on the first time. So this is a positive 8x. If this is a positive 8x, that means the 12 has to be positive and the 4 has to be negative. If the 4 is negative, this is negative 4x. It was found by saying 2x times x, which means the negative has to go there and the positive has to go there because it's positive 12x. 4 times 3x is 12x, which is positive. 2x times negative 2 is negative 4x. When I combine those two, I get that 8x term that's in the middle. Let's take a look at one that might be a little bit difficult at first, but really It's not that hard. This one has two variables. 2x squared minus 5xy plus 2y squared. Don't let the y squared in the back throw you off. It's really no big deal. We're paying attention primarily to the numerical coefficients. So we set up our binomial just as before, and the only thing that's going to be different is there's going to be a y back here with my second term. 2 is a prime number. The only thing that multiplies to get 2 is 2x times x. This back 2 is also a prime number. The thing that I have to worry with is where does it go? Does it go in the front here or does it go in the back here? What I have is 2 times 1. The 2 is going to go one of these places and the 1 is going to go the other place. Remembering I'm combining the outers and the inners to try to get 5, which is a negative 5xy. So if we think about it for just a moment, when I multiply 2 times 2, I get 4. X times y is xy. And then when I multiply y times x, I get xy or yx. Remember, the commutative property says I can flip that order and it doesn't matter. Well, if they're both negative, then they combine to get a negative 5xy. Makes sense that they're both negative because this is positive. If this is positive, that must mean they have the same sign. In this case, that same sign is negative because the sum is a negative number. Our last example is going to make us rearrange our terms first. Sometimes they give us an example like negative 9 plus 6x squared minus 3x. If they give us something that's out of order, the first step is simply to put it in order, which means the x squared term goes first, the x term goes second, and the constant goes last. I then get to work in factoring it the same way I factored it previously. Setting up my binomial, I think of the factors of 6, which are 2 times 3 and 6 times 1. The factors of 9 are 3 times 3 and 1 times 9. So let's start by trying 2x and 3x. And let's try to put 3 times 3 here. So we combine our outers, our 2x and our 3x. We multiply those to get 6x. And then we multiply our inner terms to get 9x. If this is negative, that means the product of the last two terms is negative, which means one of these two has to be negative if this is going to be a negative 9. 3 times 3 is 9, but this is a negative 9. One of these two has to be negative. The sum is a negative 3x. Since this is negative, it's telling me that the bigger of the two is negative, which means the 9x is negative and the 6x is positive. I then have to follow this 9x up to where it came from. This 9x came from 3 times 3x, which means the negative sign goes with that 3 and the positive sign goes with that 3. 2x times positive 3 is how we got positive 6x, and negative 3 times 3x is how we got negative 9x.